following podcast contains spoilers, adult language, and an arrow through the neck.
But really nice job on the booby traps.
This is a message from the Office of Emergency Preparedness. Due to the recent crisis, we ask that you remain in your homes. Do not attempt to communicate or interact with the creatures, even if they are people you know.
Lock your doors. Bar your windows. Evil is coming. It's time for Aim for the Head, a horror apocalypse entertainment podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Diana and Steve.
Hi, welcome back to Aim for the Head podcast. I'm Diana.
And I'm
This week
Steve.
we're going to be discussing Season 1 of Fallout, continuing that discussion. And tonight we're talking Episode 7. Title of the episode is The Radio. Now, before we get into our individual points and talk details of the episode, just quick thoughts on how we felt about Episode 7 in general. So, Steve, why don't you go first, because I went first last episode. So, what did you like about, or did you like Episode 7, The Radio? Let's hear it.
I did like it, and I'm just really excited because the way it kind of fell is I first one of the two of us to say this is the penultimate episode, which that's like our favorite saying, is be like the penultimate. So yes, yeah, this is the finale eve episode, if you will, and this episode is a lot of fun. There's the Vault 4 stuff. The resolution is very funny.
Mm-hmm.
As poor Lucy faces the punishment for her crimes.
I'm sorry, excuse me, you mean Goosey.
I'm sorry, yes, Goosey, because that's what it says on the file. And then we also get some nice stuff with Coop. In the flashbacky, we learn a little bit more about Moldaver and why, what's going on with her in the past, although we're still unclear as to how she's in the future at the same time. But right. Yeah, and then of course all the stuff with Vault 31 and 32 and 33 with Norm and Chet and Stephanie and all those folks. But there's a ton of like little Easter eggs to the video game players in this episode. And so that was, again, I just adore it. And they do such a good job they just kind of populate the episode with these things, and it's all in there. And again, for you who has never played the game once in your life, it's just stuff you see in the background that is like, oh yeah, that's just like something that's on the shelf, or that is something that's that abandoned building or whatever. But to like people that play the games, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe they put that in there. So
I love that stuff.
So yeah, and it's really great. And so I picked out a couple of moments and events and things where I'm like, that's from the game. So yeah. So I really think the story is coming together nicely now, and you can tell that they're kind of setting it up for this finale, right? In that Lucy has the head now. She's going to go and try her dad back, and it looks like the ghoul is closing in as well, and so there's going to be a confrontation coming up between them, and it's it's going to be fun. So I really liked it. I thought it was really well written and well executed. What about you? What'd you think?
Same. I feel like they're doing that really great job where you have like, it's almost like, we've talked about this with other shows too. It's almost like, I get to use the word, the penultimate episode. It feels like that episode is usually the one that has so much stakes involved and so much action, because it is the setup for a season finale. So I think they did such a great job. There's so many different together, and we literally pulled together almost all of them. The only thing that's missing is Moldaver and what's going on with Lucy's dad, which hopefully we'll have that resolved in the next episode. Yes. But in this one, I mean, we went all the way as far as like we check back in on the snake oil salesman doctor, and even though we don't see Brotherhood, they're approaching, so they're sort of covered in a little way, but we got flashback to Cooper. We get some ghoul stuff in the present day, get some more information about what was going on in Vault 4. There was some really interesting tidbits there. Then you get some more interesting information, kind of curious, and asking more questions. I feel like the Norm and stuff, especially right at the end, is very like, oh my god, I can't wait to see how this resolves, if it does. Because we don't know. Like, will it resolve, or is it going to leave more questions for, like, the next season or whatever? But yeah, lots of really good action, and there is some, of course, as always, there's humor, and it's just such a good mixture. We had gone like an episode or two without him, and I gotta say, I don't know what it is about the actor that plays Thaddeus, but his voice just makes me laugh when he's like, "Ah, why is this happening?" Like just the way his timbre to his voice is so.
I know I shouldn't have trusted a doctor that smelled like that.
It's perfect. His voice is perfect. So it was nice to check back in with him. We checked up in with him, the dog, the ghoul, Lucy, Maximus. We find out some Vault 4 stuff. We get more. They sent the people to the Vault 32, and that was resolved. We get Norm out more things, and then asking more questions, and it ends on a really, really big, like, oh my god, what did he just see? Like, boom, end of the episode.
What is that?
Exactly.
What is that?
So it was really good. It was a great sort of ramp up episode to lead you into the season finale, and I thought it was really good. Really, really good. So, yay. So before we get into even more detail, let's first talk description of the episode, which we received, thank you, IMDb, and also writers / directors for this episode 7. So, Steve, why don't you go ahead and give us all of that info?
All right. Well, before we get into learning exactly how Thaddeus gets on equal footing, anyway, before we do that, let's look at our episode. And again, as you said, it's episode 1.7, The Radio. And this is the Amazon Prime series Fallout. And the description we have is as follows. Residents of Vault 4 prepare to expel Lucy... Juicy for breaching the forbidden level 12. Thaddeus finds a means to heal his foot. Does he, though? Norm infiltrates Vault 31, and Moldaver convinces Coop to distrust his wife, which is the first step to a happy marriage, by the way. And that is your episode description. And well done, description writers, because we got a whole bunch of stuff.
The only thing I would disagree with is I really think that the word heal needs to be in air quotes. Because they really, I mean, his foot is healed, but at what cost, really?
I think they should have spelled it H-E-E-L to really sell the joke. But yeah. Yeah. So that's our episode description, and then our writer and director. It's interesting that this time around, sometimes we've had a pair of writers for one of the episodes. This time around, we actually have a pair of directors. So how about that? Yes, and I'm guessing it's just there was too much for one director to do, and so one of them directed the Lucy and Maximus stuff, and then the other one directed like the Norm and the Vault stuff or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like sense. I'm sure they just got split up the storylines, but we don't really know who did what. But our writer this time around it's a new person for us, and it's a guy named Chaz Hawkins, and he hasn't got a ton of writing credits, but he is the executive story editor for Fallout. So. His previous stuff, he wrote episodes for a show called The Sauce, which ran about maybe 2 years ago. And then another show called Quarantines, and it's Teens, Quarantines.
Got it.
And then another show called The Passenger. And again, like he wrote like 1 or 2 episodes of each of those things. So not a lot, but again, I think he was hired as the executive story editor for Fallout, and then one of the one of the things he got to do was he got to craft one entire episode himself. And of course, he's, been kind of overseeing all of the scripts here. So, we've been hearing his words all along. We just didn't really know it. So, and then like I said, our team of directors are both people that have directed previous this season. The first is Frederick E.O. Toye, or Toy. I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name. He directed last week's episode. And like I said, he's directed episodes of The Boys and the series Shogun and Snowpiercer and Evil. He did season 2 of The Terror. And he directed 2 episodes of The Walking Dead from season 11, which had to do with the Reapers. And he has 52 total directing credits. So again, veteran guy, done a ton of stuff. And then our other director for this week is Claire Kilmer. And she, again, we mentioned her because she's directed episodes in the past. And she also has a whole bunch of credits that she's done, just TV work in general. And that includes directing episodes of House of the Dragon and Snowpiercer, The Alienist and The Mosquito Coast. And so, again, we've talked about her in the past already as well. And again, she's done a lot of stuff. And I think that the two of them did a really fine job. So I have no complaints at all.
No complaints here. Okay.
Yeah, so that is your writer and your director.
Nice. All right, so let's jump right in. And
Eric Estrada!
You put, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, I think there's 5 exclamation points on your Eric Estrada.
Hey, look, okay, I'm of a certain age where Eric Estrada is like, rules the planet, okay? Because he was Punch.
He was the coolest. He was the coolest.
Hello.
Yeah.
So yeah, I keep hoping they'll work Larry Wilcox into next week's episode. But yeah, I know. Good luck, right? But yeah, I mean, as soon as he took off his helmet, I'm like, holy crap, it's Eric Estrada.
And what's great is so obviously we're in California, and the Ghoul makes a comment where he's like, where they were talking about the bullets they're picking up. And he's like, I bet some of that lead out there was ones that, that were meant for me, and da 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 da. So he has some kind of background where he's clearly got some kind of, whether it's a bounty hunter or law enforcement or something, where he at some point has been chasing the Ghoul for obvious, he's wanted reasons. So I just thought that was interesting that they took him and made him a some type of law enforcement of some kind and in California, because that's where he's most comfortable. I mean, he's most comfortable on a motorcycle, let's be honest, but there's not a lot of those in the apocalypse. So
not that we've seen. No,
I think Daryl has.
No, what? Yeah, and they're all in France, so right. Yeah, or now Spain. But yes, what I love about this scene, the way that they set it up is that this is an homage to a scene in a very, very famous Western called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Oh, nice.
Now I don't know if you've ever seen that,
no.
But it's basically Clint Eastwood is the star, and of course we think of Clint Eastwood as this incredible filmmaker, movie star. I mean, he's in his 90s and he's still directing and writing movies. He's Dirty Harry, and he was in Unforgiven, and I mean, he's just this like like he's one of the last of like the old school Hollywood movie stars and stuff. But when he started out in the 50s, he was a TV actor, and he was on a show called Rawhide, which was a Western show, and it like ran forever. Right? You can look it up. It's like 9 seasons of it or something. And when it finally ended in the early 1960s, he wanted to kind of really get into movies, and he was not really having a lot of luck transitioning from television to film. And so he went to Italy, and he made 3 Westerns with a director named Sergio Leone, who was a really, really famous and really good Italian director. And So in America, the movies got the nickname of spaghetti westerns
Right.
because they were Italian westerns, and they filmed them in Spain, right where Daryl Dixon is being filmed right now,
Right.
because Spain kind of has a similar terrain as the American Southwest. And anyway, the three movies were A Fistful of Dollars for a Few Dollars More, and the third one is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, he plays this. In all of them, he's the man with no name, basically,
Oh, okay.
and then so he's the good, and that is Lee Van Cleef, who, of course, we remember Lee Van Cleef was Commissioner Houck in Escape from New
Oh,
York.
yeah.
So that guy, but imagine that guy in like 1966, so like 15 years earlier than Escape from New York. And then the ugly is Eli Wallach, the actor Eli Wallach, and the story is all about the three of them are like searching for this Confederate gold because it takes place at the very end of the American Civil War, and there's this gold that's been buried somewhere, and they're all kind of outlaws in one way or another, and they're all kind of vying for it and so on. But at the beginning of the movie, when they're establishing who everybody is, literally this guy comes back to his house and comes in, and sitting at his table is Lee Van Cleef, just like the Gould,
Ah.
and he's eating dinner. And the guy's like freaking out, and he's like, "Where's my wife? Where's my wife? Where's my wife?" And finally, his wife comes in and like pours a glass of water for Lee Van Cleef. Right? Again, exactly the same setup as what we see in the show here.
Absolutely.
The difference, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the big difference is that in the movie, Lee Van Cleef is there. He's been hired by someone to kill the guy who comes in, like the Eric Estrada character.
Yeah.
And the arrangement that they make is if the Eric Estrada guy doesn't try anything, Lee Van Cleef will not kill any of his family. And the guy does. And it's kind of funny because before the guy dies, the guy pays Lee Van Cleef some money to kill the guy that hired Lee Van Cleef to kill him, which he does, which is awesome. So, but anyway, that whole scene where the ghoul is there and he's eating, right, and then they have that long conversation about he's how many boys do you
Yeah,
got
yeah,
there,
yeah, yeah.
Adam, and all of that, and then we kind of all of that. It's an homage. It's a sort of aping this scene from this classic Western. And for people out there who have never seen The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, I highly recommend it. It's super long. It's almost 3 hours long, but it's a really visually stunning looking movie. It has this iconic score by Ennio
Uh-huh.
Morricone that you've heard a million times. As soon as you hear it, you're like, oh yeah, that music. So, yeah, I highly, highly, highly recommend you
It's
check it out.
interesting that we're.
And Clint
Oh,
Eastwood,
no, no. I'm
yeah,
sorry. Finish your thought and I'll tell you mine.
I was just gonna say Clint Eastwood, the success of those movies, both critically and financially, that brought him back to the United States, and he got into American movies because of that, because it sort of demonstrated that, hey, you know what, this TV guy, he can actually be a movie guy. Because for a long time, it was very, very hard to cross
Yeah. It's
over
not the way it's
from
not the
one
way it
thing to
is now.
another.
It was hard.
No, no, no. And if you got this kind of idea, if the casting people thought, well, that guy's a TV guy or that gal's a TV gal, they just wouldn't put them in
Yeah.
movies. They just wouldn't. They're like, no, they're going to see you as your
Yeah.
character, on the TV show. And so it was very, very difficult. And this kind of, with the success and the money that those movies made, and of course, Clint Eastwood's Clint Eastwood, so he's awesome.
Right.
And they're like, wow, this guy, he can be a movie star. Let's do
Yeah.
it. So off he
Yeah.
went. But anyway, go
Oh, I
ahead
was
with
just
your
going to
thought.
say it's interesting that we're even talking about this because cr- uh, absolutely I have not seen these three movies, but I just saw a clip online either last night or the night before, and it was Quentin Tarantino saying talking about trilogies, and he says that those three
Hmm.
movies are the perfect trilogy ever made. And his thing that he was saying is that it's the only trilogy where the next movie is so good that it makes you forget about the movie before.
The
and
first
he
one.
said that
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
the only trilogy where the third one does it again. He's like, when you think about it, usually in the third one, they're just like, la 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 and wrap it up, is basically what he's saying. He's like,
Yeah, right.
you usually don't see a third in a trilogy that could stand next to the other two, and in a lot of cases is even better than those. So it was just interesting that I literally just watched that, and it's in that he makes like the same point about Toy Story, that Toy Story, the trilogy, was a perfect trilogy. He's like, and then they went and made the fourth one. He's like, and I have no interest in seeing that. He's like, because this is, he's like, no shade to them. And, I understand you make the movie and it's probably good. It got some good reviews. He's like, but for me, the way it ended with the third is the perfect ending. And
the perfect ending. Yeah.
So it's interesting that it was, I literally just had this brought up in another way. So it puts it in front of mine. So.
Yeah. Well, and interestingly enough, another trilogy, which is the Back to the Future trilogy. In part 3 of that, when they go back to the Old West, in that movie, they ape a sequence from For a Few Dollars More, where Marty puts on the poncho and he like the stove door, and he like puts it on like a bulletproof vest, so that when the descendant or the ancestor of the bully, he's it doesn't kill him. I don't know if you've ever seen Back to the Future Part 3.
Yeah, probably once, and it was ages ago, so I don't remember a lot of it.
Okay.
But yeah.
Well, in any case, yeah. So it's just kind of funny that here in Fallout they ape the scene from Good, the Bad, and Ugly, and in another great trilogy they ape another part of that trilogy, which is just weird, just how Hollywood works. But yeah, I love this scene, and I thought it was really interesting that basically this poor guy's whole way of providing for his family. He goes out with a metal detector and looks for like bottle caps and other pieces of metal, whether it's bullets or whatever, to like I guess sell, trade. I don't know. What do you think he does? I mean, they dump them all into like that bucket, and you're like, okay, and now what?
I wonder if they melt it down. They must melt it down and sell the metal to people that are either making other metal parts or whatever. That's what it looked like to me. It looked like they were melting it down to be able to use.
Yeah.
So.
Again, it's sad in a way, but again, you gotta make a living somehow, right? I mean, you got to do what you got to do. And then of course the ghoul, has somehow intercepted a letter between, Tommy, who's the kid that's with Eric Estrada, and their older brother, and I want to say his name was Rufus, if I'm not mistaken. And Rufus, of course, has often joined Moldaver Group, and we learn that he sent Tommy some caps to pay for Wilzig's safe passage through the wilderness to get to Moldaver. So this is sort of how Moldaver tried to get him, to her. And, the ghoul holds up the letter, and there's like a big freaking hole in it and blood all over it, and then he's just like, the problem is that by the time I got this letter from your brother, I can no longer read where she is. And so, Eric Estrada's like, tell him he's going to kill us all, tell him. And so the kid does tell him where, and it's the Griffith Observatory, right? Famous for Rebel Without a Cause and a million other movies, but mostly that one. And so, the ghoul's like, so Eric Star's like, oh, you got it, now please leave us in peace. And the ghoul's like, now, Tommy, you're not going to draw on me, are you? And Eric Estrada's like, no, he's not. And he's like, maybe not today, but maybe sometime. And so then, of course, the kid tries to shoot him, and I rewound it and watched it, because at first I thought he gets shot in the arm, because the ghoul, of course, kind of Han Solos him and already has his gun out, under the table, and gets him. But at first I thought he shoots him in the arm, but it looks like he actually shoots him like right in the heart.
Yeah,
and that
I
that
agree, because like the first time
excuse me.
around, it looked like he got shot like in the upper arm, like almost in the shoulder, but then when
Hmm.
he was when I watched it again and he's sort of laying in Eric Estrada's arms there, it looks like that shot is a little bit lower, so it looks like it's
Yeah,
like right in the heart there. So yeah.
yeah, and the kid looks
Oh
dead
yeah,
too. So
he
that's
does
the other
not look
thing. It's
alive.
like, no, no, he doesn't. But hey, you know what? The ghoul didn't kill the little girl, and he didn't kill Eric Estrada. At least not that we saw. He just gets his stuff and walks out. So, but anyway, so he now is on the trail again, trying to find the head. So he's kind of back in the
Yeah.
game after last week's shenanigans with the sheriffs and the government and all that stuff. So.
And it's a really good, like, a cold open that sort of shows like both sides of him with Moldaver, because we get the story with the Eric Estrada and his sons, and he's trying to figure out where Moldaver is right now, and he finds out at the Griffith Observatory. And then it sort of dissolves into a scene from the past, and it's him with the follow-up to what happened in last episode, where he went to the meeting, but now we see him sitting in the meeting and listening to Moldaver talk to these other folks, these other like-minded individuals, about the government and things that and she makes some statements about the government not being good and the government being complicit in a lot of stuff, and which come to find out they are. But he's a soldier. He fought in wars, and he's very patriotic, and it upsets him, and he has to leave. And he gets called on it. They have like a moment there where it's kind of a confrontational, where he's just trying to say, like, this isn't for me, like, you're upset at all of this, and I, he's basically like, I don't agree, like, I'm a patriot, like, this isn't I don't agree. And he makes like a smart ass comment about them, when they speak and talk about this stuff, it will lead to things like bread lines. And you can hear the reaction in the crowd. They're like, ooh, ooh, ooh. And Moldaver is not like, she's not moved by that, but she makes a comment about him selling out to Vault Tech. And it's pretty sharp, what she says to him. And it's interesting because the up until this moment, she was like, I'm so glad you're here. I'm a big fan, but in that moment, she's like, I'm a big fan, but she's like, I'm critical of you too. Here you are, a patriot. You could be lending your voice to a cause, and instead you're making commercials for the man, and it seems like they're not going to really agree on anything, but basically he goes to leave, she follows him outside, and they have a private conversation out in the hallway, and that's the interesting conversation, because she lets it be known that she knows his wife and has worked with her in the past, and she talks about how she used to work for these these research companies, and Vault Tech purchased them all, and she had been doing research on cold fusion. That was her area, that she had developed this cold fusion stuff. So it's interesting to know that this this sort of scientific advancement that they're using in the future, the little cold fusion plugs that everybody's got, are because of her. She did the research that led to those things, but she's sort of pushed out of where she was, and she basically, she doesn't say that Coop's wife is a bad person, but she's basically like, she's aligned herself with the wrong people. And she's not, it's not that she's not innocent, it's that she knows, she's not ignorant of the bad things they've done, and she's still willing to go along, is basically what she's saying. I don't think she's saying that Barb is a bad person. I think she's saying she is, guilty by association, and has also been around these things and is, now she's a part of the machine, pretty much. So, yeah.
Well, see, I actually I would disagree. I think she is saying that his wife's a bad person. I don't think she sugarcoats it at all, because she points out that she was right on the verge of developing cold fusion, which would have, pretty much ended the wars and the possibility of the wars, because, and they haven't really done a great job of bringing this across, but the reason why the United States and the Russians are so close to war is it's over energy.
Yeah.
And you kind of get a little bit of this if you have the closed captioning, and you'll hear like the snippets on the news and stuff that everybody, all these nations, they're like scurrying around the earth trying to find and get as much uranium as they can, because everything's atomic in this universe, right? And so if she develops cold fusion, which is cheap, free energy that's limitless, then there's no reason to fight. There's no, basically peace will break out. You know what I mean? And so she is, very against Voltec, because as she was getting close enough to actually have this discovery and be able to share it with the world, they swooped in, and not only did they buy the company that she was currently working for, they bought every company she ever worked for.
Yeah.
And basically just buried all the research and just just put it, like she said, put it on a shelf. And that's why she's like, this, I want it back. And so she wants to steal the cold fusion technology back from Voltec and actually do something with it, before the world gets blown up by nuclear bombs. But I'm guessing, it didn't quite work out the way she wanted it to, did it?
No.
I love the conversation that she has with Coop when she is talking about they're the bad guys, and he goes, hey, a little tip from Hollywood: a good bad guy doesn't see himself as a bad guy,
right?
And when she talks about all the companies that got bought out, and he's like, so what, you're like a millionaire communist? And she says something like, communist is what people call you when they want everyone to think you're insane, which I also thought was a really telling line. But in the end, she kind of piques his interest with his wife. And clearly, right, when she starts talking about, I don't think you know her as well as you think you do, he clearly has started to have these kind of thoughts as well. Based on what she said, like we can get into a good vault and all just how the Voltec is becoming a bigger part in her life than almost he is,
right.
And so she gives him this little listening device,
right,
and he's like, you want me to spy on my wife? And she's like, yep, that's exactly what I want you to do.
Yeah.
And
she's laid the groundwork where she's like, makes all these comments that makes him question his own wife. You know what I mean? And it's a difficult situation for him to be in, for sure.
Yeah. So he kind of leaves that meeting with this little bug and kind of like a little bug planted in his ear a little bit about, he's not a full believer or
right,
anything, but he's like, a lot of stuff that she said, got to him and made him kind of think about, well, maybe there's something to this.
Yeah.
So,
and it's stuff like she has no motivation to lie about, she's a scientist, and she's angry because her discoveries were sort of taken out from under her. So it's, she has a lot of credibility, at least, you know what I mean? Even though he doesn't know her, like I said, she really doesn't have any motivation to lie here. She's trying to get people over to her cause by telling her personal story, pretty much. So, It's interesting.
Yeah. She has no agenda that he can, at least tell.
Yeah, that's it. That's a good word for it. Agenda, for sure. We go out of that scene to our weekly title card. And it looks to be in liquid, like underwater somehow.
I think so, yeah.
But to me, though, it's got kind of like a yellow tinge to it, and it reminded me of the tanks that are in Vault 4 a little bit. So I was curious about that. But there's, it could be any number of things. But yes, it definitely is underwater.
I thought it was Crystal Nuka-Cola is what I thought it was. But that's me. I'm just, I'm weird. So.
Crystal Cola. Oh my God.
Remember Crystal Pepsi?
Oh my God, do I? It's terrible. Terrible.
It was awful, but it was a marketing gimmick.
It sure was. They were doing anything to try and win the cola wars.
Yeah, and you're right. I think so. I think what it reminded me of was the tank with the chair in it.
Yes.
That the woman gave birth to all the gulpers, because it kind of had that yellowish tint to the water. So that's where I thought it was kind of suggesting that's where it's from.
And it's interesting because we go right out of that title card. We go back to Vault 4. And because we ended last episode with them capturing Lucy, so now we have her, she's sort of thrown into into like a little jail cell, and they're, we brought you in here, we fed you, we took care of you, we whatever, and and you do this, and they're mad at Lucy, but then Lucy is like, how could you do what you did to those people? How could you have experimented on them, and da da da. She's just upset because clearly, and then they show, because she saw the video that they took of the birth, so that's one thing. But then Birdie says, show her the holotape, and Ben comes back and they show a different tape, and it's the two scientists, the man and the woman. You made a note there. They're the same ones from the commercial. And I forget their names, but they're the scientists that were in the commercial that said, oh, we're going to have a society run by scientists. And
the one that Coop goes, I might be a hero in the movies, but you're the real heroes.
Right. But in this video, that we see, it's like the experiments that they were doing have fallen apart, and they didn't, they didn't succeed. And basically, they admit on camera, they're like, they don't let you like go, well, I wonder what's happening here. No, they tell you they were experimenting on they were breeding humans with nuclear affected like other organisms. So they were trying to see what would happen if someone affected by the fallout was paired with a human that was not. And in a lot of cases, it became like a real mess. And of course, we ended up with like the people that have like the ear on top of their head, and the guy that has the nose on his forehead, and Ben, who has one big cyclops eye. But Ben makes a comment too, where he's like, because it shows that they're making this video, and you can hear that they're in like their lab, and someone or something is trying to come in. There's someone at the door that's trying to bust in, and they're trying to be like, this. It almost sounds like they know, like, this is our last transmission that we're going to be able to make,
Oh, yeah.
And
well, he's talking to the camera, and she, like the wife, she's like busy like trying to barricade in front of the door.
She's like, I need your help. I need your help.
And she's like, help me. And he's just like, I know. He's like, now I understand that, people will be down on having scientists in charge, but it's really a good idea.
Yeah.
And he's trying to sell it, even though this is like their last moments alive.
Yeah, exactly. And so he's trying to give them like an account of what's happening. You can sort of see what's going on in the background, that they're trying to barricade. But whatever it is that's outside the door bursts in, and you don't see it. You just see like everything sort of burst. There's noise. The camera falls down on its side, and then at the you hear like yelling and screaming, and that's not good. But then all you get is it shows in the camera a gulper comes out of nowhere, and then it goes to like eat the camera basically.
Yeah. Well, it kills him.
Yeah.
It pulls him in, and you hear him die, and then it looks at the camera and eats it. So yeah. So science gone wrong.
And Ben makes an interesting admission there when he says he's like, what did he say? That was my uncle. Or
my great uncle on my mother's side.
Yeah, the gulper
like
was related to him.
Yeah. Yeah. And the scientist guy, he points out right before the gulper breaks in that he's like, some of those test subjects weren't overly happy to participate, but still, and again, just trying to justify everything that they're doing, and so of course Lucy is like, oh my God, I had no idea. And then we find out that like what the guy that she threw the acid in the face of and so on, they're all there to like try and like ease the suffering of some of these people that are still suffering from these experiments and just trying to make their lives more tolerable, right? And that they're, you know what I mean? And so she's like, oh my God, I had no idea, your vault is so weird. And I can't remember if it's Ben or if it's Birdie, but one of them goes, so what was the experiment in Vault 33? And she's like, we didn't have one. And they're just like, okay, sure.
Yeah, and I feel like there'll be a little more information coming soon that might change how she feels about that. But as far as Lucy knows, and she has been kept in the dark about some things, so even without knowing any details for the next episode, if you're following along and watching the episodes as we go, it certainly seems like she's got sort of a naive outlook because there has been things that have been kept from her. So there certainly could have been experiments that were going on that Lucy just did not know about because she just didn't know about any of those things. So I just thought that was the way she was like, we didn't have experiments. And I was like, as far as you know, I mean, hello.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it just what Norm has uncovered with, how, all of the leaders for the two vaults all come from the other vault. And so, obviously that's got to be something because it's, but we've been pointing. So you're right. And you're right. Lucy still true blue believer, that Dad is a great guy and that everything is just hunky dory in Vault 33. Yeah. So, and but so they sentence her to death.
Yeah, and they're like, we're sentencing you to die, and then they take her out of there and they're bringing her somewhere, and they put like a hood over her, and they're dragging her down the hallway, and they go right past where Maximus's little apartment is, and he's still sitting there, still watching that waterfall, watching the TV. And just sitting there with a big old grin on his face and eating the popcorn. And then you do. They drag her by. And he has a moment there. He has a moment where he thinks about, do I go help her?
Yeah.
And he really goes, should I? I'm really, I'm enjoying, and you can see it all on his face. He doesn't say a word. He's just like thinking about it and should I? And then he's like, okay, fine. So he decides, he gets up and he's got to go and help her, but before he leaves, he takes one last handful of popcorn and shoves it in his mouth, which I thought was great.
Oh yeah, so like you do, yeah. And so this is my without a doubt. I mean, maybe the Fred Armisen stuff at the end is amusing too, but I mean, this is the funniest part of the whole episode for me.
God, yeah.
Is the ceremony where they're going to, I'm going to use air quotes, kill Lucy, or Goosey as it would be, and they literally they had like the whole vault is there. Yep. They're in like the big big room, the big open room, and Lucy is like, she has this like leather like restraint that's holding her wrists to like a table or something. So she's, kind of like handcuffed, but it's leather. It's not like steel. And Overseer Benjamin, starts talking. He goes, "For causing harm to a fellow survivor, you are hereby sentenced to death." And then he goes over and he picks up this sword.
And it really feels like, oh my God, this is terrible. They're going to cut her head off.
They're going to kill. And she's just like, holy crap. And she's trying to get away. And then he comes up, and as he comes up with the sword, he goes, "By banishment to the surface." And then she has her eyes closed. And then when she opens them up, and it's so great with the closed captioning, because he's like trying to cut this leather thing, and all the closed captioning says is gentle sawing. And he's like, and it's not working, and it's not working, and it's not working. And he's like, it's almost there. And then he kind of stops, and he hands the sword back to Birdie, and he goes, need to get that sharpened, please. and so then he like just reaches down and he pulls the leather apart, because it's been cut enough by this dull sword. And so she's free. And then Lucy's like you're just letting me go. And then he's like, well, that's certainly an optimistic perspective. I mean, you'll be killed almost immediately on the surface by Lord knows what. And so then she looks, and he goes, that's why we're giving you 2 weeks of supplies to take with you. After that, you're on your own, Goosey. That's so funny. And they set this big box down with all this stuff.
And then I love the last line of it is the total, like, they're way too nice for their own good.
Oh, they are, because she's like, I just have one request, and he's like, obviously someone will carry the supplies to the surface for you.
Yeah. And that wasn't what she was going to ask,
funny.
but it was great. Yeah.
It was, yeah. And her request is, for Maximus. She's like, my friend, he really likes it here, and he's a good person. He deserves to be someplace safe. Can he stay? And then literally, as soon as she says that, like, all the lights go out, because he's removed the fusion core from their system.
Yep.
And he comes striding in his armor, and he's like, let her go. And then I think they start playing the song Only You.
Yes.
At that moment. And he's swatting these Vault guys around and throwing them, and he picks up this Nuka-Cola machine and throws it, and is smashing everything, and then poor Goosey is like, Maximus, stop, it's okay, they're gonna let me go. And he goes, really?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. And then he goes, somebody maybe check on him, because like one of the guys he was like on the ground groaning. And so it's so funny, because you think it's going to be awful. I mean, you think everything's going to be awful about this vault, and then it turns out they're really nice.
I know. They just can't help themselves. Yeah, that's a hilarious scene, because it's like he's so like gruff and ready to go, and it's like, let her go, and is throwing people everywhere. And it's so funny, because the thing that they said to Lucy, and of course, she feels like she's being let off easy, because they're like, we're going to banish you to the surface. And she's like, so you're letting me go? Hello.
Yeah,
but one of the
which
things,
is where she wants to go anyway.
Of course. So what they said to her, one thing they said was, you brought violence to our vault. And so they banish her, and then Maximus comes in, and he just like wreaks violence all over the place. So it's just
he does.
hilarious to sort of
does.
Compare the two. It was great. Yeah. Really great. And,
it was. Again, the actors that are playing all these Vault 4 people are just so funny. And I don't know if you noticed, but in the crowd is the guy that she threw the acid on. Yeah. He's got this big like patch over one of his the side of his face.
I love it. That's a really good attention to detail. Well done on their part. Yes, I did notice him. I thought that was good.
Yeah.
That's a great, and that was probably one of the funniest scenes of the whole episode.
Without a doubt.
Probably close second is the Fred Armisen at the end, but this is definitely a funny scene. And in between Maximus deciding he's going to save her and then this scene here, we do get a short scene with Thaddeus where we catch up with him, and he has come upon a gas station, and he's got the dog with him still. The dog is just connected to Wilzig's head. He's like, this is my
Yes.
person. I have to go. And so he's like, taking a little bit of a rest, and he's, decides to like take a second, and then he does the unthinkable. He pulls the sock off and then shows us, and it's all I put is that it's gnarly, and your reaction is really great.
Yeah, it's like, that is not how a foot should look.
No, not at all.
I mean, you can see like there's a compound fracture, and I know you know what that means.
I do.
Where the bones are literally sticking out of his foot, and then like his like big toe is like hanging by just like a flap of skin and kind of like wobbling. I mean, it is so messed up. I mean, you're just like we said last week. I mean, if that were to happen to you today, they would just cut your foot off.
Yeah.
Because they're like, we can't fix this. I mean, it's just, smushed. Oh, so gnarly's a great word, because it is. You're just like, and
there's this funny moment too where he pulls the sock off, and he's like, looking at it because he knows this is bad. Especially since, to get where he needs to go, he's got to walk. So he's got to walk. It's not like he can like rest his foot while he drives somewhere. That's not happening. But he's sitting there and he's like contemplating the foot, and the dog goes up and starts licking his foot, and he's like, that's my foot. That's not dinner. It's not eatable.
It's not food.
Yeah, it's not food.
Yeah.
So he decides, like, in that moment, he's like, this dog isn't working. I need to ditch the dog. Yeah. So gotta ditch the dog. So he takes poor CX-04 and he takes the dog and puts it in a drink cooler that was right outside of the gas station. And there's this funny moment too where he's like, yeah, you can breathe in there. Yeah, you can breathe in there. You're fine. Yeah. And he shuts it. And I'm like, I'm not sure I can breathe in there, but okay.
I thought the same thing too, but when he first did it, I'm just like, so you're just gonna suffocate that poor dog, because that cooler, a lot of those have an air seal, obviously, because their job is to keep stuff cold. And then I like the fact that he actually like comes back and opens the lid, and he's like, you can breathe in there, right? He's like, yeah. You're fine. And then he leaves. Yeah. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. And he points out, hey, there's even a little window for you. You're fine. Yeah. You're gonna be fine. And he ditches that massive golf bag.
Yep.
With all the stuff. He leaves that in the trunk of a car, and all he takes is the head and the fusion core.
Yeah.
That he took from Maximus, and then he has a gun too. He keeps one of his guns, so that's it. And he's gonna travel light. So, what I wanted to point out was the gas station itself. Mm-hmm. It's called the Red Rocket. Again, straight out of the game. Absolutely 100% straight out of the game. In terms of how it looks. And just interestingly enough, in Fallout 4, when you leave the vault and you go back to like the house where you lived at one point, and then you leave that, and literally the first thing you come up to is a Red Rocket gas station, and there at the gas station is a dog that you befriend, and he can travel with you as your companion if you want. And then when you're first playing, you're like, yes, I'll take you, and so then he follows you around, and if you get attacked, he'll try and fight the bad guys, and he's a companion. So anyway, I thought it was kind of interesting symmetry that in the game, in that the most recent Fallout game, you find a dog companion at the Red Rocket, and here the guy is trying to lose a dog companion at the Red Rocket. So. But again, just an incredible Easter egg, kind of, hidden gem kind of for game players of sort of like, oh yes, but we're all familiar with the Red Rocket gas station.
That's awesome. I love it. We also get let's see,
we have to finish up the Goosey and Maximus story with Vault 4 because it's not quite done.
No, they get to the surface. Because they're like, okay, we're leaving, and they get up to the surface, and she asks about the core,
She's like, we got to give it back.
Yeah. And he's like, no, I need it. I have to have it. And they
power my armor.
Yeah, they go back and forth a little bit, and he's trying to make the point, like, I need it because I want to keep you safe. We got to go find your father. And she makes a really pointed, observation, which is that if they have backup power, but it'll last a couple of days. So basically, taking the cold fusion core is basically sentencing Vault 4 to death, is what it comes down to. And Lucy basically is like, if my father found out that we, doomed a whole vault to extinction just to save him, he'd be, that's not what he would want. He would rather that they be able to go on and live and do and live their lives in the vault, whatever. So he's basically like, and then
he's hemming and hawing.
Yeah, and he just doesn't want to do it, but then eventually they send it down the chute, and there's this great scene where there's a woman right by the bottom of the chute who's like cleaning the floor, and it drops all the way down, and then it cuts up to them at the top by that entrance where they first came in, and it looks like a medical facility, and there's a red light. They're right by that door and watching, waiting for it to get to the bottom, and you can hear from far away, "Thank you."
Yeah, it's so great. She's like, "Thank you,"
which is just hilarious because it's just like it just goes all the way down and bam, falls on the floor. It's great.
Yep. Yeah, and in the closed captioning, it just says "janitor, thank you." And literally, you're right. She's like literally like scrubbing the floor with like a brush, so they're walking out of that like medical facility building to go back, outside. Lucy's like, "You're thinking about those oysters that you so enjoyed so much in Vault 4. And he's like, "Yeah." And she's like, "My vault doesn't have oysters, but my vault does have canned tuna." And she's like, "And if you like oysters, you'll probably love canned tuna." And he's like, "Uh-huh." And she's like, "What I'm saying is, I was supposed to marry someone from another vault, and it didn't really work out so well." And then she says something like, "Maximus, or Titus, you're the nicest person on the surface I've met so far. You're a good person." And he's just like, and then she asks him, "Do you want to come live with me in my vault?"
Right.
With me, wink, wink, nod, nod, nudge, nudge. And he then is like,
"I have to tell you something."
No, yeah, he's like, he didn't put his hand up to like the bridge of his nose and scrunch his eyes and go, you could tell he was doing that
mentally,
like in his
mentally,
head.
yes,
yeah, and he's like, I gotta tell you something. And then he finally comes clean on the fact that his name is Maximus and Titus was the night before him, and he does tell her that he, the knight threatened him, and so he stood by and let him die and did not help him. And he basically says, "So I'm not a good person." And she is so great because she looks at him and she's like, "I just threw acid in an innocent person's face." So, and I've only been on the surface for two weeks. You know what I mean? So she's like, "Look, whatever you've had to do, you've had to do." She's like, "I don't care." And so, and it was a real fun moment because he kind of finally fessed up about, who he is and what's going on. And she forgave him anyway. And I love when she's like, "So do you still want to live with me in the vault?" And he's like, "Yeah, of course."
Yeah, that's a great scene. And so I think from there we pivot back to Vault 33, and we get this. We get the scene where basically it shows like the tedium. Raiders. It shows the tedium of Norm delivering the food to the raiders, but then it eventually
Jello cake.
It eventually ends with he goes to deliver the food, and they're all laying around. And someone has poisoned them. And
Yep. Rat poison.
and of course, Betty's like, we'll investigate and we'll find out who did this. And Norm is like surprised. He's looking all around. So, he didn't do it. And then you see like the girl who stands guard outside, who sits at the terminal, the one that got the Jello cake the last time. They're dragging her away, and she's like, I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything.
I didn't do it.
I didn't do it.
Oh, yeah.
So Betty doesn't, she doesn't tell Norm, like, that she thinks he did it or anything, but she thinks that he's created an environment where someone felt like they should do it. So he tells her, she tells him, that, I told you words have consequences. So she's basically saying someone did this, but they did it because you said we should do it. So she is basically saying, like, she holds him just as responsible as whoever did the rat poison themselves, And then there's this great moment where, I forget, they're interchangeable, but Reg or Woody, one of the dudes, who's running.
Woody's the guy with the
glasses,
beard.
Yeah. So he's like, well, this is going to upset people when they find out about this, which, hello. But then Betty makes a good point, where she's like, people need something to fuss over. So she takes upon herself that, it's a very, like, it reminds me a little bit of our own administration right now. She gets out ahead of the bad news and distracts them with, hey, here's everybody's assignments. So she sends out a message via everybody's Pip-Boys to let them know where they're going. And there's this great scene where you see like these numbers come up on the screen, and they show the people, and there's a bunch of people that find out they're staying in 33, and then there's all the people that find out you're moving to 32. And and Woody's one of the people that's moving, and he's like, shit. Damn it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And
Davy's like,
yeah,
yes!
He's all excited, which is really great.
Yep.
He's very positive.
Yeah. And Steph kind of has this knowing smile when she and Chet both get you're going to 32.
Oh, yeah. And there's this great scene where, Norm finds out he's staying. He's not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But he goes to Chet's apartment to go talk with him about this. And they're packing up. And he's like, well, you guys are going? And, basically he's like, Chet's saying, we got a chance to sort of start fresh. We're being given a home. And for the three of us, and like right now, Chet lives in a place that's probably just only suitable for him. So they're probably, I bet when you have a family, you probably have quarters that are a little bit bigger. And so he's been told, we can get a starter home, basically. And Norm's like, well, what about the stuff? Like, what do you, the stuff that we saw, what do you say about that? And Chet's like, this is a chance to sort of start fresh. And he's basically saying, forget all about it, and we can start fresh here. And Norm tells him, you put the quotes in there and your points.
Yeah. Well, before we get to that, I just want to point out, when the scene begins, okay, Stephanie is sitting down and she takes an ice pack and she puts it into her nether area, okay?
And I'm sure any woman who's given birth is probably like, yeah, I get it. Because there's so much like...
No. I think you missed the point of that.
What do you mean?
Because original husband was a guy about as big as Norm. And now she's literally shacking up with Chet, who's like 6'6".
It could be that. I took it as she was just, she's only like a couple of days from giving birth. And usually women are swollen and they have all kinds of problems down below. And it takes a while for all of that to sort of go back to the way it was. So that's how I interpreted it. But it could be.
Okay.
Could be...
Well, no, I read it the other way that she's getting a little different kind of attention than she ever had before, and so she needs the ice pack to help. But anyway,
It's still a
yeah,
funny
so he
scene,
comes
though. Yeah.
over. Oh, it is, and so the she greets Norm, and she's like, "Oh, hi, Norm. Terrible about what happened to the Raiders, huh?"
Yeah. So as soon as she says it,
You
you're
know,
like, holy shit.
yeah. Well, okay, here's my question for you here before we get into the rest of the scene. Uh, do you think Betty killed him?
Um, I don't know, because I mean, I think they're setting it up for you to think that Stephanie did it. But it's
Hmm.
entirely possible that she didn't. Um, the only thing I'm thinking is I think it's possible that it's Stephanie and not Betty, only because I don't think anyone knew how upset Stephanie was. She sort of took Norm aside and told him how upset she was. So he's really the only one
Hmm.
that knows that she wants to kill the Raiders as well. Um, but it's also possible Betty did it because I think that, when we start finding out more secrets about the other vaults, I think, it's possible that they were killed because not out of the revenge like Stephanie had, but perhaps because they know too much is a possibility.
Yeah, maybe.
What do you think? Do you
See,
think Betty did it?
oh God, yeah, I do. My thought is that okay, Betty and Stephanie, they're thick as thieves and in on whatever's going on because they're both from
Okay.
31, and so my thought is Stephanie specifically went to Norm. Betty told her to go to Norm and say, your dad would know how to deal with these,
Right.
animals and put them down to plant that idea so that Norm would either do it or, as we saw, stand up and publicly say that in front of
Right.
everybody so that kind of setting up the patsy, if you
Yeah.
will, so that Betty now can, because, like you said, the Raiders, maybe they know something. Maybe they would start talking about, well, all the people in Vault 32 are already dead and, they'd all killed themselves and all whatever. But in any case, she just wants to get rid of them because they don't, they all they're doing is draining their supplies. Everything that Norm said about them is
Right.
true, and so she's like, we're just gonna zap them and get rid of them. And so I really think that yes, that Betty did that because it was just a cold decision that had to be
Right.
made. And we're not going to feed these people. We're clearly never going to rehabilitate them. They're never going to be able to join the population. So they're going to live out their lives in this little room, and we're going to feed them. No, we're just going to kill them now and stop that. So she did, and then like you said, then to kind of give people something else to think about, she sent out the email or whatever you want to call it with her Pip-Boy about where everybody's going to live, and suddenly nobody really
Yeah.
cared about the Raiders
Funny how
anymore,
that
right?
worked, huh?
So yeah. So anyway, so yeah, my thought is, and I cannot remember if they in the next episode if they confirm this or not. This is just me watching it now.
Mm.
Is that yeah? Clearly, Betty and Vault 31 said, yeah, we're gonna wipe those Raider people out because they serve no purpose now.
Interesting.
So, um, but yeah. Anyway, so yeah, you're right. Norm is kind of asking Chet like you're just gonna go, you're just gonna move in there, and it's really funny because Stephanie goes, Chet, I'm holding the baby, so you're gonna have to pack up for us.
I'll do this and you do that.
And Chet just kind of has this. He's like, you can tell he's happy, but he's also like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself
Right,
into?
right.
With this with this relationship and
Yeah.
everything and so on. So yeah, and so he has a quick minute with Norm and basically like you said, he's like, I think a fresh start is really good for us
Yeah.
here, to go to Vault 32, forget about everything that happened and so on. And then Norm just goes, you know what, Chet, you're a coward. And Chet just looks at him, and as he's getting ready to close the door, and he goes, we all are, Norm. That's why we live in a vault. And then he closes the door. And you know, again, it's very insightful comment that, yeah, you know what, they ran away and hid when the world, you know,
Yeah,
ended.
they did. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, a really fun scene. And you know, if anything, I think this just is going to empower Norm even more to figure out what the hell's going on.
Yeah, great scene. We get a really great scene with Thaddeus. He runs into our favorite. You know, I'm gonna use
a chicken
I'm
forker.
gonna use doctor with air quotes.
Yes.
But he's clearly the snake oil salesman. And what's hilarious about the scene is that just before he even sees Thaddeus, he's just about to kill himself. He's got the gun.
He's just about to blow his brains out.
He's got the gun in his mouth. He's ready to go. And then Thaddeus walks by and he's like, oh, look, a patsy on the horizon.
Well, and what's great is that it's like a rifle. And so he's like taking off his shoe and his sock and is trying to use his toe to trigger the gun because it's so long he can't reach it with his hands. And and he's literally got the barrel in his mouth and he's like trying to get his toe into the trigger.
Hilarious.
And then he sees Thaddeus. He's like, ooh, and then he quickly puts his sock and his shoe on and goes racing after him. Yeah, and he tells him, hey, I can cure that for you, you know, if you trust me. And you know what, Thaddeus, don't trust him.
Yeah, and he did, and it was a poor, you know, in hindsight, poor choice.
Poor choice.
But it's watching. We get to see the gnarly foot again, which was gross.
So
but
awesome.
He inhales this concoction from the doctor,
but I warn you, it tastes awful.
And he's like, just give it to me. And he trades for that and gives him the cold fusion core.
Fusion core,
which is pretty important that he gives that up. And he, you know, takes the medicine and you look at his foot and it immediately starts like repairing itself magically. And
the bones come back together and go back inside his foot and the skin starts forming over. Although if you look, his toes do not exactly reset in the correct way.
But you know, tomato, you know, at least he can walk on his foot at this point now. But there's this great moment where he's, you know, then he's like, oh, this is great. I gotta find a radio station because I need to, you know, get this signal across. And the dude's like, yeah, over yonder, over by the shithole and whatever Shady Sands. And he's like, well,
this town
he's like, yeah, but it's, you know, it's supposed to be all radioactive over there. And he literally pats him on the shoulder. He's like, don't worry. You're not going to have to worry about that anymore. He's like, I'm sorry, what?
And Thaddeus is looking at him like, what does that mean? You know,
little foreshadowing.
Oh, yeah. And it's like, it's like, dude, you really should have read the fine print. You really should have. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so, the chicken forker then, you know, packs up his stuff and just skedaddles out of there as fast as he can.
Yeah, but you don't blame him because now he's like, he's got a new lease on life. He's got his cold fusion core that he can now go sell for some crazy amount of money because he was really surprised. He's like, you don't see those anymore. So they definitely gonna be rare. Yeah. So he's got probably the most worthy, you know, the most valuable thing he's ever been given is in his hands right now. So he's got a new lease on life. He's off he goes. And who cares about this sucker? Goodbye.
That's right. And I just point out in the game, if you go to one of the little towns and they'll have like a shop, kind of like you know, Ma's shop we saw in Philly, you know, that just sells stuff. They will have fusion cores and they are a lot of caps, like thousands of caps to get one. So yes, they are very, very expensive.
Yeah.
So, but the good news is you find them all over the place because there's all kinds of suits of the power armor all over the place and lots of buildings in the game. If you go down in the basement, they'll have, just like in the vault, they'll have like their power area, and lots of times there's a fusion core. So it's not impossible to find them, but when you do have to buy them, they're pricey.
There you go. So he takes the information and he makes it to the radio station, and we get the funniest scene probably of the, I don't want to say of the whole episode. I still say the, Maximus trying to break Lucy out was a pretty damn funny scene. But he gets this whole scene where it's and to preface this, leading up to him getting to this, he's got a little radio, like a little transistor radio. And there is one person that's like broadcasting a radio, playing music and stuff. And he's like, today, once again, it's fiddle music. And every time, they show Thaddeus and he's got the radio with him, you hear like little bits and snippets that, give you little warnings where he's like, no requests, and please, nobody come visit, and all of that.
Just drop me a postcard.
But he gets there, and it's great because we see him after he's already gotten there and has already done the deed and like called on the radio and gotten through to the Brotherhood, etc. So he's just sort of sitting and waiting to.
My ride will be here any minute.
The Fred Armisen guy, who is the radio station dude, he's they're playing he's playing all this like terrible fiddle music. It's just not good. And he's making it seem like they just don't make music like this anymore. I mean, it's just got so much in there, the treble and Thaddeus is trying to like go along with the conversation. It's like, yeah, that. Oh yeah, the treble. The
treble, the bass, and the mids. And he's like, oh yeah, I hear it. Yeah. And he's like, people today, they just don't understand music.
It's so funny. I love that moment where he corrected him too, as such a music snob, where he was like, that's it's definitely better with it, on it. He's like, oh, well, it's not on it, it's in it. And I'm like, okay, that's like, he's so like, oh God, it's hilarious. And he gives him like some compliments. He's like, good job with the booby traps. And then they sort of show he's got all these like booby traps set up and people that have been caught and stuff like that. And it's pretty gnarly, not to overuse the word, but it's, too late. It's like, heads that have been chopped off and bodies that have been snapped in half and these huge like like big bear trap contraptions, and they look fantastic.
There's like a big mouse trap thing, like a snapper that's got some poor guy. Yeah, it's very funny. And it's almost like, dude, you need to like go out and like reset them, because like they're almost all they've all gone off, and there's like you said, there's like corpses and body parts all over the place.
Yes. So basically it's like, they look great, but I mean, you can't catch anyone else if it's got someone in there, which sort of explains how Thaddeus was able to make it all the way up there and not get injured. All of the traps look like they've got something already in there. And then the guy is like, oh, is that your ride coming? And Thaddeus is like, oh shit, oh no, crap. And it's Maximus and Lucy, and he's like, oh god. He takes out the gun, and he has the most stormtrooper moment ever, where he shoots like 10 shots.
Oh yeah, he empties all. It's a revolver gun, and he just bang, 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 click, 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 and then it cuts. You just see him shooting, and then it cuts over to Maximus and Lucy, and they're still standing there, and they're like looking at each other like,
yeah, they have like but they do a check-in where they're like, I'm okay, you're okay, we didn't get hit.
Yeah, you all right? Yep.
And then they approach.
And so then the dude's like, and he's like, oh, I'm terrible.
Without the scope. Yeah, that's it. And they put their hands up and approach to be like, we're not here for harm. And Lucy immediately is like, we just want the head. That's all we want,
He's like, who are you? And she's like, I'm the person that cut it off.
Thaddeus gets a little like shook, and he like goes to step backwards, and he hits a tripwire, and this arrow comes out and goes whoop right through his neck. And there's this great moment where like Maximus and Lucy are like, and there's like Lucy literally has her mouth covered with her hand because she's just like so surprised that it happened. Right. And Thaddeus is just standing there, and nothing's happening. And he's like, what do I do? And he's like,
why haven't I died?
What's happening? And he's so like confused. And then he goes to start pulling it out. And Lucy's like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if that's a good... He's like, well, I'm not going to leave it in there. So he pulls it out. There's no blood. And then nothing's happening. And then you see the little holes start to close up. And Maximus is like, oh, hey, dude, I think you're a ghoul. And
Yeah, and he's like,
But then
oh no, I knew I never should have trusted that guy.
he like touches his neck and he realizes that like there's no hole there, and he's like, oh no. And then it all becomes clear. I'm sure he understands the nuclear stuff comment that he made, where he's like, oh god.
He never should have trusted a doctor that smelled like that. Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah.
And so then he realizes that he can't go back with the Brotherhood because they'll kill him if he goes back like that. They won't tolerate that. And so he's like, I got to get out of here. And so Maximus is like, give me the head. And he's like, I'll stall with the Brotherhood and allow you to get away. And Thaddeus is like, you do that for me? And he's like, yeah. And so he gives him the head, and he's like, I'm sorry for everything. Nice to meet you. Bye. And he just goes running away, right? And so so he leaves, and so then Maximus goes and gets another head, because as you pointed out, there's like heads all over the place
to choose from.
Yeah, and he picks one up, and he like goes and he like smashes the face against like a rock to like muck it up, so it's hard to recognize. And he gives her Wilzig's head, and he's like, if they want a head, I'll give them a head, and you go off and use this, get your dad back, and do all the stuff you want to do. And she's like, but we were supposed to live together and all this stuff. And he's like, you just go and do it and do what you need to do. And she's like, find me, I'm being Vault 33. And then he grabs her, and it's so great because they kind of have that very, very cinematic moment where he grabs her and they look into each other's eyes, and then he just plants one on her, and it's really great. But then it's so funny because the camera kind of tilts down, and she's holding one head and he's holding another head, and they're like almost kissing because they're right next to each other.
So well done.
Oh yeah, it's very funny. And so then we should point out that like we see in the distance these like vertibirds are approaching. So the Brotherhood is like is closing in on them. And so literally he's like, go. And so then she goes off, and he turns to kind of face them, and then we cut away from that story, and we don't get any more of that story in this episode. But yeah, when the two heads kissed, I was just like, oh yeah, that was awesome.
We get the final scene of the episode is this great sort of long scene we're back in Vault 33, and there's this great long scene where it starts out with the Vault 33, the people that are going to 32, the 32ers that they're called now. Everybody's sort of gathered by the vault door to say goodbye. And it's so funny because it looks like a bunch of people that were let go from a job, because they're all carrying like a small box in their hands, and it's got like a plant that's coming out and da-da-da. So it's very funny.
Yeah. Well, and Woody's like, I'm not going.
That's hilarious.
I'm not going. I'm not doing it. And then he's like, I don't live there. I live in here. And the security guys stop him, and he's like, I'm sorry.
He's
I'm
like,
sorry.
That was weird.
And then Betty, it interrupts Betty's speech, and she's like, fine, I'm going to start again, but oh yeah. And she does the whole thing about, they're all pilgrims, and good luck, and we're going to miss you. And it's wonderful. And then they announce who the overseer is going to be in Vault 32.
Yeah, interim overseer will be Stephanie. And you can see like Norm is there, and he reacts to it. It's a surprise, and
and he looks right at Chet, and they both make eye contact. Like,
it goes with what they were saying before, which is all of the overseers that have been elected by the people in 33, and yes, this is in 32, they are all people that have come from 31, and Stephanie came from 31. So it still follows that same guideline. So it's interesting, and you could tell like Chet knew nothing about what was happening. You could tell by his reaction that he's just as surprised as everybody else. But that explains why they're going to be like, oh, we'll give you a nice house when you get there. Well, that's because she's going to be in charge, you know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that they open up the vault, they go to say goodbye, they're all waving, and then Norm has this moment where he can't watch anymore, but he's got an idea of what he wants to do, and he's got to kind of like leave really quickly to go do what he wants to do. And the last thing that Chet sees when he looks over is Norm walking away. And Norm is really like, he's got a purpose because we know he's going to go into Betty's office and do his thing. But it really is an interesting way because he turns his back on Chet and goes, and Chet's last image of his friend is his back, and he doesn't get to wave goodbye or anything like that. It's kind of sad. And it makes you wonder, like, will we ever see Chet again? Which I don't know the answer to that question.
I don't know the answer to that question.
So
it's a good
Norm,
one.
his whole plan is he's got to look in the computer. He's curious again, trying to figure out more intel about, who, how is it that it's always people from 31? And there's got to be something more to it. And he just doesn't trust anything that's happening. So he goes to Betty's terminal and logs in, and he goes over to, like, they have this chat function, and he wants to send a message to the Vault 31 overseer. And he's like, hello? And they're like, Betty? And he's basically like, and they're like, how are you doing over there? And he says, how does he say it? The first thing he says is like,
he says, I need to go back to Vault 31. Exactly. And then the other overseer goes, are you compromised?
Which is fantastic.
and he responds, plan and things are not the plan is not proceeding as it should, was supposed to, or something. Yeah. And then 31 goes, I see. And then you kind of see the little blinking cursor, and then it says, return to Vault 31 immediately. And so he's like, all right, so they're going to open the door, so I got to get over.
And he does, and he gets to the door, and he's like, hello? And then it starts to open, and he gets inside, it closes, and it's dark, and he's like, hello, hello? And he creeps forward, and there's no people to greet him. There's nothing there.
Nope.
And as he's walking in a little more, there are some computers and some sort of electronics off to the side in this hallway he's walking down. And he comes closer, and we see Norm's face as he approaches, and he sees something there, and you can see he reacts like slightly like, oh, what is that? And then boom, that's the end of the episode. So we don't see what he sees, but we see that it's concerning, whatever it is.
Whatever, we know that his reaction ain't good, and we're like, oh,
yeah. So it doesn't bode well that he's like, I don't know what this is. It's so that's how the episode ends. So just fantastic, fantastic. Yeah. I do know that when we got kind of excited and we kind of jumped and missed like one or two things that are on your list, which are the sort of the two Cooper scenes that we got, the flashback scene with the listening device, and then the resolution in the future with him with the dog. So if you wanted to talk about that, because you made some notes there, I want to make sure we hit them.
I do want to talk about them, and
you do that.
I banish you to listen to me talk about them. No. And first of all, I just want to say that when the Vault 31 door closed and it was completely dark, and then you just hear Norm go, hello, I thought that was the end of the episode.
Me too.
Because there is a long pause before he says hello again. And so, because I'm like, and wouldn't that have been a great place to cut? because you're like, what did he see? What did he see? And so then he's like, hello. And then you're like, I'm like waiting. I'm like, okay, here come the credits. Here come the directed by, the written by, all that. And we're going to hear the old timey radio song. And then the pause goes on and then he goes, hello. And then it cuts and we see him walking. I'm like, oh, there's more.
How
So,
nice.
Yeah. Yeah, but I thought for sure that was the end of the episode.
Same.
But yeah, somewhere in there, we do cut back, and I think it's after they return it's either after they return the fusion core or after the scene with we're all cowards. That's why we live in a vault.
Yeah.
One of those two. We do jump back to the Cooper flashback thing, and he's at home and he's smoking a pipe, like you do, and excuse me, and Roosevelt the dog is on his lap and he's reading this magazine, and it's just a nice little nod, Easter egg to the game, because the magazine is called Tesla magazine. And in the game, periodically you can find Tesla magazines, and if you do, it will unlock some technology advantage. It'll give your guns, more power, or you'll have better armor or whatever. It depends on which one you get. But anyway, that's a neat little nod that they threw in there that they didn't have to. And he's sitting in the room by himself, and he happens to look up from the magazine and he sees that his wife's Pip-Boy is just like sitting there on the table, on the counter. And so he reaches into his pocket and he, of course, has the little bug with him. And he's like, this is, I got this thing and I'm supposed to do something with this thing. And so he gets up and he goes over to the Pip-Boy and he like holds the bug near it, and you can see on the screen it's like syncing up device, like your iPhone does with your earbuds,
it's like a Bluetooth
or whatever
thing almost.
Yeah. And so it worked, and it finally says, successful, and then he puts the little piece she gave him, that's like the earpiece that he puts into his ear, which is weird because when she first gave it to him, I thought like he was supposed to like stick that in her office or something.
What I thought too.
You know what I mean? Yeah, but it's not, and so he puts it in, and you can kind of hear the room that he's in with the Pip-Boy, and then he hears his wife coming in, and he kind of steps away from it, and she's like, "Hey, I got hot cocoa for you and me and our daughter, outside," and he's like, "Yeah, I'll be there in a minute," and she then picks up the Pip-Boy and like puts it on her wrist and goes out on the patio, and he's still got the earpiece in, and he kind of turned his head away so she couldn't see it, and he can hear them, the daughter and his wife having this conversation out on the patio, so he knows it works. And he then like kind of has this moment of like, oh my god, what am I doing? Like, I cannot believe I'm spying on my wife. So he takes out the earpiece and he throws it in the garbage. He's like, I'm done with this, Excuse me. And so, and then of course, later on that night, he, wakes up and he's like, crap. And he gets up and he goes out to the curb and he dumps the garbage out on the ground and is like literally pawing through his garbage to find this stupid bug. And the reason why he does it is he looks at, because Roosevelt's out there with him, and he's like, he kind of says to himself, like, not going to allow dogs in the vaults, huh? And so like that's kind of like his motivation of like find out what's really going on. So we know he has the bug, and he set it up so he can listen in on his wherever it is. As long as his wife's wearing the Pip-Boy, he'll be able to hear, which again is going to propel the plot forward for next week. And then we do get a scene back in the wasteland where the ghoul comes up to the Red Rocket gas station, and he kind of he goes over to the car where Thaddeus hid the big bag in the trunk, where he first pulled the shoe and sock off, and we saw how gnarly his foot was. And like literally there's like blood in the dirt, and like the ghoul like dabs it with his finger and then licks it. He's like,
tasty.
And then he spits it out and he's like, yep. And he's like tracking, he's doing all the bounty hunter shit. And then he hears the dog still in the cooler. and he goes over and he lifts it up, and he lets the dog out because he knows the dog can track
Yes.
the head.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to use you, boy. And so they go off there, and at one point then he looks at the dog. And the dog is like trying to lick him is like a friendship kind of thing or something. And the ghoul tells CX-04, he's like, sorry, dog meat, but you're not him, and not his old dog. But for the people who play the game, the dog that you meet in the Red Rocket in the game, you name dog meat.
Interesting.
So that was a neat little Easter egg callback right there to kind of say, yeah, he calls him dog meat. So yeah, and so then they go off, in pursuit. So now Lucy has the head and is making the way towards the coordinates that Moldaver gave her, or the coordinates to get to Moldaver, and the ghoul and the dog are behind her a considerable amount, but they're also making their way there. And then now Maximus is left to deal with the Brotherhood, and of course Norm is, what the hell did Norm just see in Vault 31? So that's kind of where everything wraps up at the end of the penultimate episode. And again, just like we've been saying all along, it was really tough to not hit. Yes, I will watch the next episode right now.
Absolutely. I was rewatching just before we started recording, and I was like, and it was like, next episode. I'm like, yes. I'm like, no.
No.
Must resist.
No. Yeah.
So we.
Yeah. Put down the remote.
So we backtracked and covered those 2 points. Is there anything else that we missed while we were chatting? It looks like I got everything on mine.
Yeah, I've got one thing left that I wanted to bring up, and that is when Norm goes into Betty's office and he literally has to hack her terminal. And, if you notice, he goes there and he goes to the sign on, and it says, like, enter your password. And then he types like some code, and then the whole screen changes, and it basically has like a whole bunch of gibberish, different characters and special characters and stuff all together, and then kind of interspaced amongst all this gibberish. If you look, there's like 4 or 5 actual words that are in there, and he kind of looks at them and he kind of types some stuff, and eventually he moves the cursor down till it highlights one of the words, and it's the word dubbed, and he hits the button, and that's like her password, and then that's how he gets into her
the
terminal, so he can send that message and stuff. That, again, straight out of the game, when you find a terminal throughout the wasteland, and there are a ton of them that will open doors, or they will activate robots. I mean, they do all kinds of stuff, but a lot of them, they're locked, and you have to hack them. And when you do that, that's what you get. And you get these 4 or 5, or sometimes, depending on how advanced the lock is, the computer is, it could be even more. And one of those words is the password to get you in, and you have to figure out which one. And it's a wonderful little nod to the video game that they did not need to do at all. And it does nothing to propel the story at all, but oh my god, it just hits the game players in all the right spots, because that's exactly how it is in the game.
Nice. All right, I think we hit everything. We think we've hit it all. We've done everything. So that's gonna wrap it up for our discussion on this episode. But we're gonna take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to discuss our listener feedback, and then we're going to talk about what's coming up next on the podcast.
So everyone, please, it's going to be gnarly, I swear, so stick around. We will be right back.
Now there's about 20 of them out there.
What will we do?
Don't worry, we're safe in here. They'll never get in.
Why is it that in every zombie story, people always think that their safe haven is invulnerable?
I know. It's like, hello, the walkers are totally gonna get in. You better get ready for it.
No! Diane, get behind me. No, it's not stopping.
Do something, Jack!
And another thing, how come nobody in a zombie story has ever seen a zombie story?
Do you know how much time in human life would be saved if just one person in the group was up on the genre?
What do we do?
Aim for the head.
What?
Aim for the head.
You heard them. Aim for the head.
Quick, Diane, I think we should try and fix the barricades.
I think we should listen to them.
Now, that's the first good idea they've had all episode.
I still don't think they're gonna make it.
Aim for the Head, a horror apocalypse entertainment podcast. Join hosts Diana and Steve as they recap and discuss the best of horror, sci-fi, fantasy, and apocalyptic entertainment. Aim for the Head, available wherever you listen to podcasts. Find us on Instagram and Blue Sky.
The following is an emergency action message. Civil authorities have identified a biological threat that they deem credible. This threat could potentially affect the entire continental United States.
The dead are returning to life and attacking the living.
911, what's your emergency?
There's a man on bed and he's attacking another man. Looks like he's biting him, like on the arm.
The initial signs are puzzling, unclear.
Getting pulled out of their cars and thrown to the ground. It looks like the bus passengers are biting their victims.
Soon, however, the reality is clear and undeniable.
The crisis involving the recently dead continues. Parliament today passed a law that requires all bodies of the recently deceased to be registered and turned
Toxic
over.
Bag Productions has captured the sounds of the zombie apocalypse and brought them to your gaming table. Background ambiances, zombie attacks, and radio transmissions that set the scene for your modern zombie adventure. Download MP3s from drivethrurpg.com or toxicbag.com.
Hey everybody, we're back. We're going to jump right into our listener feedback we received for episode 7. And as always, we heard from our number one listener, number one feedback person. Come on, Erica, thank you for writing in.
Hey, Erica.
It's always so great to hear from you. And she left us her thoughts on episode 7. And here's what she said. She says, "The ghoul strikes again. I'm just glad Sandra wasn't on the menu." Sandra was the little girl.
The little girl.
Yeah. Lucy was caught on level 12, threw acid on Nosehead Guy, and they haven't confiscated her Pip-Boy? Just what is the experiment in Vault 33? Good thing Maximus is finally getting his button gear. Oof, his foot is messed up.
That is not how a foot should look.
Not how a foot should look. It's about time Thaddeus ditched that enormous bag. But putting CX-404 inside the vending machine, not cool, man. And good on them for both returning the core to Vault 4. Hopefully Maximus realizes Lucy forgiving him for lying is a really good thing, and he'll be better behaved from now on. Looks like karma may get Thaddeus after running into this shady, air quotes, doctor.
Doctor?
Did Norm poison the prisoners? I don't know. I think that it was Stephanie, and Steve thinks it's Betty, and
yep.
I agree in the one thing. I think Norm is the patsy, no matter what. So I think that he's been set up as a patsy. So whether or not he takes the blame or not, we'll see.
Well, and I agree with you too that the way that the scene unfolds, he certainly acts surprised.
Yes.
That I don't think Norm is that good of an actor. That he'd be like, you know what I mean? That he'd be like, okay, when I come in there this morning and they're all dead, I got to be like, oh my God, I mean? He was sort of like, what the hell's going on? And so I agree with you. That was the vibe I got from it. So I definitely think it was not him. I think it was, and my first thought is Betty, but again, it could be Stephanie, it could be anybody who is a 31 person that has been brought over. We don't really know who else there could be, but yeah, definitely.
So continuing on, she says about Thaddeus, LOL, yep, he's a ghoul.
He a ghoul.
Yep. Pretty smart of Maximus to swap for a different head and smash it. Yes, it was. Did everyone in Vault 33 forget their water is about to run dry? I know I did. I forgot all about that. So that's going to be interesting. And then she rounds it out by saying, "Oh, Norm, what have you just seen?" And that's the end of that. And I agree. Like, I'm curious to see what it is he sees, because it obviously is not what he was expecting. That's for sure.
No.
He looks very surprised.
No. Yeah.
So thanks for writing in, Erica. As always, we love hearing from you. We can always count on you. And folks, if you're listening and you've got thoughts on the finale episode, you've got all kinds of time. Send it in. Let us know. And also, if you do want to write in for next week's episode, let us know how you feel about season 1, how you feel about the season as a whole, like if you think it was a strong season, etc. And I'd also love to hear from people. What are you looking for in season 2? Because that's coming up soon, and I have some things that I would like answered and would like to see talked about. So I'm curious to see what everybody else is hopeful for in the season 2. So we'll chat about that. We'll sort of wrap up the season when we talk next, when we talk about episode 8. So that'll be a next episode, but just as a reminder, we're going to be off next week. So it's going to be in 2 weeks. We will record about episode 8. And title of that episode is The Beginning. And not a great description. It just is a very general description about the show. 200 years have passed since the beginning of the apocalypse. Leaving the atomic shelter that protected them will pave the way to an unknown world that will unleash a war for survival. If memory
doesn't tell you everything you need to know.
If memory serves, there's a lot of spoilers in episode 8. That if you read that description before being finished with the season, it would kind of kill some stuff for you. So I totally agree with having a very generalized description.
There's definitely some, I'm just going to use air quotes here, revelations next episode where you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh. So yeah, it's going to be good.
Yeah, we're going to make those exact noises. But in 2 weeks, we'll be doing that. So that's a reminder.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. That's a reminder. No episode next week. We'll be back on the 8th to discuss the finale. And then following that, in the week after, on the 15th, we are going to do a double episode and discuss the Daryl Dixon season premiere, which is airing on September the 7th. And then we will talk about the second episode as well, which is airing on September the 14th. So we'll put out social media posts as always. So once you have watched the Daryl episodes, send us in your thoughts and let us know what you're thinking about that. We'll include that when we chat on the 15th. We're pretty excited about the start of that season. They're really ramping up the commercials. You know that they've spent money on the marketing campaign when I'm watching TV on other channels and there's ads for the Daryl Dixon show.
Dixon. Yeah,
I'm like on ESPN watching baseball and they're like, Daryl's back. And I'm like, really? So here's hoping. We've been really pleased with the seasons so far. They've been the most interesting of the spin-offs to me. So I've got some high hopes for this to continue to be an entertaining as well as a well-written and beautifully filmed show. So I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a fun time.
Yeah, me too. I'm right there. And I've been doing everything I can to shield myself and not click on anything. I think I've done a really good job, knocking on wood, so far, that I really know very little other than they go to Spain. I don't know how they get there, but they're there.
Yes.
That's all I know. And I'm like, good. And that's how I'm really excited, because I have nothing at all about, they could do anything. I have no ideas, and I'm just gonna see whatever happens.
Yeah, no expectations and no real idea of what to expect, actually. So same. I've when the commercials come on, I'm like, oh, it's Daryl, and it to be fair, it's like the same clips package over and over and over again. So it's not revealing a lot. So I feel comfortable watching that commercial over and over again. When it gets a little closer and maybe they change it up a little, I might have to avert my eyes a little because I don't want too much given away. So there's that.
Yeah.
And speaking of fun times, we're gonna have a fun time this coming Thursday.
Oh my God, it's gonna be so great.
We have tickets for, if you aren't aware, and you should be aware, because take a look in your local market and see if you're able to go. This coming weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I think Sunday, there are showings of Jaws on the big screen in a variety of places and markets, and for the celebration for the 40th anniversary. And we have tickets. 50th. That's right. It's the same age as me. And so we are super excited. We're going to nerd out hardcore on Thursday.
Oh my God.
Our plan is we'd really like, before the year is out, while it's still in the 50th anniversary year, we'd love to cover Jaws, because it's so much. It's an action movie. It was the first real summer blockbuster, so it's got so much history there. It's still, I would call it a horror movie. It's
a horror movie.
Blood and guts and all of that.
It's a monster movie.
In fact, when we were at Flashback Weekend, Nick DiGilio was talking about, he was asking people what's your favorite jump scare. And one of the first people, it's what I would have said, is the Ben Gardner head coming out.
Gardner's head coming out.
Such a great jump scare.
Oh yeah, it is.
So
because you're expecting the shark to come up behind him,
of course,
and eat him or attack him, and instead the shock is right in front of him. Yeah, it's awesome. It's an amazing moment in that movie.
We are so excited. The only thing that will tamp down our nerdiness is that my wife is going, and she is guaranteed to make fun of us the whole time. So whatever. But it's not like we haven't been made fun of for being nerds before. This is my whole life. So we are super excited. I have seen Jaws no less than about 1 million times, and I have never seen it on the big screen. So I am super duper excited to be able to see it on the big screen. I can't even tell you. It's one of my favorite movies. It was also one of my dad's favorite movies, and so that's one of the reasons we watched it a lot. Probably we were a little too young to see some of those scenes, but whatever.
Whatever.
Yeah. So
you turned out just fine.
Yeah, I don't have any problems whatsoever. I'm very emotionally connected, and I'm balanced. I don't have any anxiety.
You are.
Hey,
I tell you, you are a role model.
I'll give you this though. I never was one of those people. It never scared me to go into the water because I knew that it was fake and all of that stuff. But the people that were like, "This movie made me scared to go in the water," I'm like, "Grow up! It's a movie."
People stopped taking showers and stuff because of this movie. That's
crazy.
I know, right? But all I would say is and just to kind of build on what you said is that I think for a big chunk of us, that are not in our 60s, we've never seen this movie in the theaters before. It's only been on video. It's been on cable. It's been on DVD or something. So you watched it in your house.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, I've been lucky enough to see this movie on the big screen already. And Jaws on the big screen is a different experience than on your TV. And I don't care how big your TV is. You can have an 800-inch TV. It's not the same. It's not. And it is much more visceral. And the violence is much more intense. And I know that's weird because how can it be more intense? It just is, because it's mass. I mean, you have to see it. You really have to experience it and know that, seeing it in the theater, that's how Spielberg wanted you to see it.
Right. Agreed.
And so, yes, it's being re-released all over the country in theaters and drive-ins and everything. So like Diana just said, check out Google it and look it up and see if it's playing anywhere near you. And if you get a chance, even though it's a movie you've probably seen, like Diana, a million times, it is totally, totally worth it to go because it is an incredible movie experience. There's just no way. And it's going to be a pristine, cleaned up, restored print, so it's going to look amazing. So I am over the moon excited for this. It's going to be great. We're going to eat our popcorn. We're going to watch Jaws. It's going to be amazing.
I'm excited too because I feel like in the last few years, because I probably watch this movie every couple of months, and it's not because I seek it out, but it's on TV a lot. But what I've noticed is, as opposed to being on like an HBO or something like that, the last probably 5 or 6 times that I've watched the movie, it's been on something like TNT or TBS or something like that. So it's edited. Some of the gory scenes are not as gory. They cut back on a lot of the stuff, especially, the Alex Kittner scene is a little different. Also, the
stuff with Quint.
Yeah, the boating instructor guy of going in the water. That's gone. The Quint being bit. There's also the autopsy of the girl when Hooper's going in there he like lifts limbs and stuff like that, and they don't show that in the edited version.
A lot of that's trimmed. Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to seeing a fully unedited version as well, because like I said, the last few times that I've caught this, because it's kind of like Shawshank and A Few Good Men and stuff like that. When it's on, you just watch it because it's just it's a quality movie in so many ways.
It is. It's an amazing film, amazing cast, and it's
I can't wait.
Super excited. Super excited.
I can't wait to see it, and then I can't wait for us to record an episode where we talk about it. And we're looking to do that probably sometime in the next month or so that we can have the conversation happen in between when Daryl Dixon ends and also before Fallout Season 2 begins. Which, if you didn't see, it will begin on the 17th of December. And there was also, they put out like a thing that I think last time it released all the episodes at once. This is going to be week to week. So be prepared.
Last time I believe they did do that. They did like a couple right at the beginning, and then it was one a week.
Okay, this is the whole.
I want to say that's how it was.
They're not going to double up at all. It's going to start on the 17th, and it's one a week every week for 8 weeks. So,
I'm good with that.
Get ready. So
it's going to be good.
Anything else we need to chat about before we finish up?
I don't think so. No, I think we got all of our stuff lined up. We're ready for Labor Day. It's hard to believe that the summer is pretty much flying by, and
it's over.
We're coming into September, which is great because that means we're moving into Halloween season, and soon everyone's gonna have
Spooky season.
Their witches and skeletons and all that stuff up, and that's my favorite time of the year. So I'm always sad that summer's ending because that means the bad weather's coming, but I'm also excited because for the next 6-8 weeks it's going to be all horror stuff, and I love it.
It's going to be all the horror marathons. All the good movies are going to be on Shudder and on AMC and everything, so it's a coming.
It's happening.
All right. So that's going to wrap it up for us this week, folks. We look forward to chatting with you again in 2 weeks' time. But until then, as always, I'm Diana.
And I'm Steve.
Don't forget to always aim for the head.
Because those body shots, they just don't work.
To send us an email, write us at aimfortheheadpodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @AFTH Podcast. Pictures and video are always welcome at our Instagram account, Aim for the Head Podcast, all one word. But the best way to keep in touch with us is to just like our Facebook page to get all of our updates in your feed.
You have pasta, so let's go.
Yeah, that's true. I'm very motivated. That's for sure. All right, so then without any further ado,